This meeting is being recorded, just FYI, and we will just get started with some introductions. We'll start with introductions from the members, and then we'll go on to introductions from other folks. So I will begin. I'm Karthik. I'm the chair of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, also known as the MAAC. And I have an eye condition called Stargardt's macular degeneration, which makes it really difficult to see centrally, and then also just general low vision. So I, along with, I'm one of the many folks in the district who don't drive because of their disability. People with disabilities are twice as likely to not own a car than folks than otherwise. And I will popcorn it over to our newest member, Ms. Kelly Mack.
Hi there. I'm very excited. This is my first official meeting.
Oh.
So Kelly Mack, and I've been living in DC for almost 25 years. Time flies when you're having fun. And I use a motorized wheelchair. I also don't drive. And I've had my disability since age 2. So transportation and wheelchair use has been kind of central to my whole life. And one of the reasons actually why I came to DC was the robust transportation options when I was looking at my choices. So anyway, I'm very excited to be here and to be on the MAAC, and look forward to our meeting and discussion.
Congratulations.
And let me popcorn it over to Buddy.
Okay. Thank you very much. I am Buddy Moore, a member of the MAAC. I have glaucoma, and I've lost vision in my left eye, and I have limited vision in my right eye. So driving, I haven't driven a car in almost 10 years. I'm also a member of the National Federation of the Blind and a member of the Prevention of Blindness Society. I'm an outreach coordinator for the Bernice Fontenot Senior Wellness Center in Ward 1. So I'm wearing many hats. Now, this is the last meeting of my two-year terms with the MAAC. So I will not be returning. Good luck to the MAAC, and I will be looking for someone in my building or a member of the National Federation of the Blind to see if that person can actually sort of step in and become a member of the MAAC. So all is not lost, even though I will not be returning. So I will now popcorn it over to Xavier.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Xavier Davis. I am the Americans with Disabilities Act Coordinator at GDOT. This is my first meeting the MAAC. I think I've met Karthik, Miss Kelly Mack. I think we've spoken a couple of times. I've met Buddy, so I've met a couple of people, but first time joining the actual meeting. And so I'm excited to be here this evening, and I will popcorn over to Zachary.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, Equity and Accessibility Analyst with the District Department of Transportation, also liaison to the MAAC. I will popcorn it to my colleague, Blake.
Hey, folks. Good evening. Blake Holub here. I'm our acting Deputy Chief of Operations, and I also manage our Strategic Asset Planning Division, which helps build our work plan for our PAYDC initiative.
Great. And if you can pass it on to someone who has not yet introduced themselves, that would be great.
I think, who's left? Is it Adrian? Is that right?
Yes. I'm Adrian Morrison. I'm a civil rights attorney for the federal government. I have visual impairment, nervous condition I was born with. I work, I do civil rights work, any kind of discrimination issues, employment type issues is where my focus is. And, I wanted to volunteer with the group because of some of the issues that I've I've seen and experienced regarding the scooters and mobility devices on the roads and streets. People act kind of reckless and negligently often and not paying attention to their surroundings and what's going on around them.
Great, thanks. And then I think Neha is probably the, no. We've also got Susie. Susie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Susie McFadden-Resper. I'm with the DC Office of Disability Rights, and I'm assigned to sit on this committee. I am an ADA compliance specialist for Public Works.
Okay, great, thanks. And Neha is our administrative assistant. Do you want to introduce yourself, Neha? Or she might be. Oh, there we go.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody. I'm Neha. I'm the administrative assistant for MAAC, and I've been organizing and taking notes on these meetings. So I'm excited to see everybody today.
Yeah, great.
So, without further ado, so we've got a few things on the agenda. So one, we've got PAACDC, two, ADA transition or kind of big picture ADA, talking with Xavier, and then lastly just open discussion. We've got starting next month we can talk about kind of operationalizing our report card that we've been working on over the past 4 or 5 months now. But yeah, so today's I will turn it over to our friends at DDOT.
All right, so I think Blake was going to go first with PAACDC. Blake, are you ready to present?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. So I'm going to share my screen.
You should be able to do that. If you go down to the bottom, you should see a present now button. It should be the fourth one from yep.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. It's actually the first time I've shared using the Google meeting function. Usually I'm on Teams or Zoom or something. This is great, really easy to use. Thank you guys for having me and having questions about our PAACDC initiative. Xavier approached me, or Zachary approached me about presenting the group, and we always want to engage with folks and obviously share how we create our work plan, what goes into our decision making, but also get feedback from the community to really gain an understanding of maybe what we're missing, what we need to consider, and other considerations that we can take into account for future years. So I'll go over in general our PAACDC initiative, but I'll primarily focus on the sidewalk plan portion. That is one of 4 plans that we put together for the PAACDC initiative. And at any moment, if you guys have questions or comments, feel free to just jump in. I'm happy to answer those along the way. Okay, so one of the main things I wanted to hit home on is for those of you who may or may not know, we have a PAACDC initiative that was launched in 2018, and at the time it was really focused on resurfacing and tackling sort of the worst or the poor rated roads in the district, poor being defined by our pavement condition index. And so we although we focused, and that was the original intent of the PAACDC initiative, we really expanded that out to our other pavements and other core infrastructure such as alleys and sidewalks and pavement markings, and really started to rethink how we're delivering our work plan and structuring our plan during our construction season, which generally runs from March to November, December, when it starts getting really cold, right? So we do have this external website here. I'm gonna see if I can. It's our PAACDC site. I don't know if I click into it, if you guys will follow it. Can you guys see? Let's see. Let me here share this tab a sec. Okay. So this PAACDC site has all of our major work plans, as an overview of things that residents can expect. It talks about road rehabilitation, sidewalk restoration, gives some visual aids as to what we're looking at. We have a section dedicated for sidewalks, which covers, in general, the material types we maintain, which are, there's roughly 6 material types, and there's 5 listed here that we maintain. And that's outlined in also our design engineering manual and our public realm design manual, as well as our gold book. And then we also wanted to highlight on some other maintenance treatments that we cover under our PAACDC initiative. They're sort of secondary work, but do tie with the sidewalk asset itself, and that's horizontal saw cutting, which is essentially a minor treatment to reduce the height of a trip hazard on concrete material, and then sodding and reseeding our tree lawn or planting strip area. We also have the sidewalk condition rating that we sort of developed in-house, prioritization of what we deem as sort of most severe to sort of low level conditions that we, or distresses that we want to tackle, but don't raise to the level of a high priority or sort of an emergency or an immediate response. And then we also have alleys and markings and some other things that are tied to the PAACDC initiative. And then on this site, we do have our plans published. And so for roads, sidewalks, and markings, those plans get published in typically early March for the year. And the alleys restoration plan gets published in October. It's based on a fiscal year cycle. So for example, this the map that you're seeing right here, this is a live look at what's been completed, what's listed as substantially complete, which means essentially we need to just resod and replant the tree lawn area that was disturbed, and then anything that's under construction, which is in orange. And anything that's not been scheduled yet is showing or appearing in this red color, pending notice to proceed. But our plan for this year was actually 50 miles originally, and we were able to expand that to about 77 based on our budget and the way the team is operating. Now, some of this we might have to push over to 2024, given the window of time we have left, about 3 weeks left in the calendar year. But our objective is to try to complete as much as possible that we have committed here. So that's sort of the PAACDC site, mainly focused on the sidewalks. I want to jump over to the story map here. Can you guys still see this screen here?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So what you're seeing here is, in general, the entire footprint of the PAACDC initiative. So it covers essentially every ward, every ANC, every single member district in DC. And it's our goal to be as equitable as possible in working with Zach and Xavier's team and adhering to our own policies. And, as you can see, the footprint, very large. We try to coordinate work as much as possible with our internal teams, but most importantly, our external folks, such as our utilities, so that we're not interfering with their work, but also collaborating on sites and possibly sequencing, if we can, that work. But essentially, we put this plan together during sort of the off season, which we're kind of entering at the moment, and we release it again, usually in the early part of March, around the beginning of the construction season on our paid DC site. And that consists of, this work consists of about 6 contracts tied to resurfacing, alley restoration, and sidewalk restoration. So it's several different teams that are looking at this. For sidewalk specifically, we're looking at a criteria that includes open service requests, age of service requests, condition data, and I'll get into that a little bit here later, that we have within the sidewalk network, any work orders and temporary work orders that we have, because we want to ensure that the sidewalk facility is restored to its standard material. And then we also look at our ADA compliance data, and also proximity to sensitive populations, primarily in built structures and buildings that people would be residing in or using. That would include schools, that would include rec centers, elderly facilities, and we're using data from our open data site and information that Octo has available. So we're having everything kind of up to date. It's not just sort of anecdotal. We have that layer available on the map. And so that goes towards building out the work plan and using, of course, our budget. And let's see if we can hear. And so one of the things we've been able to do is really start to sort of refine our process and also build out our plans for future years. So we do have our 2024 plan draft sort of near completion. There's some minor tinkering to kind of fit underneath our budget. But we also have locations queued up for 2025 and 2026. We're going to start looking and moving new sites into 2027 and really have this multi-tiered asset management plan for our sidewalk facilities. And so what you're looking at right here is a map of all current sites on our work plan and future locations that we have already queued up for 25, 26, and 27. And then those out years, there's still changes that could be made, again, predicated on budget. But we want to ensure that we have an open service request or inquiries from the community, and they're asking about these sites, that we're at least having them available and on the plan, and demonstrating that we are aware of the location and we're trying to restore the site permanently. And if there's any mitigation we can take to triage conditions, we will do so with in-house resources. Let's see here. We also have, in addition to the paid DC initiative, which is primarily executed by our asset management branch in our maintenance division, we also have a in-house crew, the Street and Bridge Maintenance branch, which does more small, minor repair work throughout the district. And so what you're seeing right here are locations that have been either temporarily repaired by our Street and Bridge Maintenance branch or permanently restored by Street and Bridge. And these, when you think of minor repairs, the way we define it is essentially 9 linear feet or less. So these are really small, isolated locations that the team will tackle. Again, it can include asphalt patching, concrete work, brick work, and even work associated with our pressed concrete pavers, which you commonly will find in the central business district, downtown, the Golden Triangle bid areas. And you can see that the progress associated with that specific team over the last couple of years has shot up significantly. In 2021, just off the heels of the start of the pandemic. We were at about 700 locations that we were able to tackle, and now we're nearing about 1,600 as of the end of fiscal year 2023. So the team's really been able to ramp up their work using, I think, a more refined structure that we've created and a process to ensure that we're not duplicating efforts, we're not showing up to the same locations that are tied to our PAACDC initiative, and we're responding in a timely manner and using data to inform us of where and when to go. In addition to that, over the last, this is over the course of FY 2022 and into the first couple quarters of FY 23, I managed a small group of folks to go out and proactively inspect all sidewalk locations in district, all portions of our sidewalk network, which did not receive any sidewalk restoration work, did not have a service request reported on them, or did not have a work order associated with that block in a 5-year period. So these are all sites that we had not had any information on or had not touched in a very, very long time, right? So what you're seeing here is a map of all the individual locations that our small group of 3 went out to during an 18-month period and either confirmed that conditions met our standards or recommended that work was needed and created a work order, which was then either assigned to our street and bridge maintenance branch or our asset management branch. And in some cases, we did find where utility work resulted in not being restored. The asset wasn't restored properly. So we did work with our public space inspections branch to have restoration complete or enforcement of restoration per the terms of their permit. So there were about 2,100 locations in total that we were able to look at. And essentially, we found that of those sites, about 44% met our standards and 56% required repairs. And those were divided up, as I mentioned, to the subsequent teams, for remediation. With that said, so I'll get into sort of this tab here. One of the things that we've been trying to hone in on, and this gets into the equitability and the use of service of 3-in-1 to that sort of informs us of where to go. We've really tried to use that information 3-in-1 to as a piece of the overall decision-making pie. It's not the overarching authority for us, and it's not based on exactly what you're seeing right here. And that's if you look across the board by ward over the course of the last 6 years, there's some obviously there's some discrepancies or there's some differences, I should say, in terms of reporting for repairs by ward. Where Ward 2, we're seeing 27 to 37% over the last 5 fiscal years, and in Ward 8 we have anywhere between 7 and 3%, right? So that's what led us to look at this on a more proactive level. And ultimately what we want to move towards is having sort of a 3-tiered inspection process where we're looking at things in a proactive level, we're looking at things in a reactive level, and those are service requests, and then we're looking at things in a performance-based level after we've restored the asset, seeing how the material is holding up over time and the durability, so to speak. Because we do have contractual obligations. Our contractor has contractual obligations to ensure the material will hold up for a given period. In most contracts, it's about 2 years, but there are standards that each material pours concrete, for example, will last up to 25 to 30 years in low residential neighborhoods. So we want to ensure that the material is holding up over time. The last thing I just want to add is that what's not shown here, and there's been a lot of interest and I think sort of inquiries about is overall sidewalk data collection, right? I mentioned that at the very beginning. We use that as part of our formula to prioritize where to go, and you know, as one of the key factors. And prior to this past year, we had not collected sidewalk data since about 2014. So our data was a little old, to say the least. So over the last year, we have worked with a contractor, a vendor, to collect that data. It's very similar to our pavement condition data collection, where there is a machine that drives over the sidewalk. There are two different types. There's one sort of like like a four-wheeler type of vehicle, and the other one's more so like a Segway, and it's collecting distresses along the sidewalk, and trying to identify the nature of the stresses, aggregating the amount, per block, and ultimately, capturing material types. And we're getting a significant amount of data that we'll have access to at the beginning of the calendar year, and we'll be able to use and really help deploy resources and understand really our true nature of conditions of our 1,500-mile network, and sort of what our budget needs are, and start to really move towards the future of managing this particular asset, which is one of the most discussed and one of the assets that I think we get a lot of questions about. And so we really want to be all-encompassing when we're looking at our work plans, and responsive and informative, but also we want to help educate and demonstrate to folks exactly all the different things that we're doing to try to hold ourselves accountable to maintain this asset. That is everything that I had in terms of data and our process. I'll open up to questions if you guys have specific questions, and I'm happy to answer those.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. This is very informative. And we'll start with MAAC members, and then we'll go on from there. So anybody on the MAAC, have you any questions? Feel free to start. Buddy, go for it.
Yes, let me jump in. Thanks, Blake, for that presentation. Well thought out, very informative. You mentioned the fact that there are 6 material type. How are those 6 material type used? Does it depend upon the type of traffic that is that goes through a certain neighborhood, that you will use a certain type of material opposed to another neighborhood? How does that work?
Most of the material usage is defined by our regulations. So there's certain neighborhoods that have material types associated with them per DCMR code. But in general, the majority of a sidewalk network is standard concrete, Portland cement concrete. And you do have certain areas, historic districts, that the regulatory language assigns like brick material to use for those districts. In the central business district downtown, there are the downtown streetscape regulations, which have a prescribed material, mostly a prescribed material of the concrete press pavers, or sometimes people call them London pavers, as well as other material, Chinatown brick, and some small areas with decorative pavers. That kind of gets into that other category that I was mentioning earlier. So each area does have defined material types. but the overwhelming amount of material is concrete.
Okay. My second question is, if a resident or a visitor sees an area that needs some attention, who do they call? 311 or do they call DDOT?
Yeah, great question. So submitting a service request is the first thing I'd recommend people do. In addition, you can check our PAVE-DC website. That's where we publish our work plan for the current year. We also have a community engagement division. So they're in direct contact with our advisory neighborhood commissioners, also different community groups. They can also reach out to our community engagement division, and they can inquire about a specific site, whether it's on a future year, it's not a current year. That's a question that often comes to us, is that I've reported this location, I don't see it on the plan. When is it going to get restored? And it's most likely either queued up on a future plan, or it's with our street and bridge maintenance division branch, I should say, requiring more minor treatments. So we can get the answers to those questions is just following, I think, submitting a service request and then following up with our community engagement division if you want more details, and then we can certainly answer those questions. I'll also give you my contact info. Zach or Xavier, there's minutes after this, you can share my email. I'm happy to answer questions about specific sites that you guys have.
Great. Okay, thanks.
I have a couple questions. Can you explain a little bit more about what is meant by ADA compliance data and where that comes from?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll also turn it over to Xavier and Zach. But there's a data collection project that usually will collect ADA, let's say, non-compliance related features of our sidewalk facility. And historically, that data was captured, I think, on a 2-year basis or a 3-year basis, and we had incorporated that data into our sort of formula or algorithm of where to prioritize work. Xavier, Zach, I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about that data collection, both currently and historically, just to shed some light on what that's aimed towards and how that data is shared.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Lakeisha Love, and the link I have has not been working. Can someone send me the link so I can actually see what you all have? I'm on the call just listening in.
Hi, Lakeisha, this is Zach. I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Blake, for your question, I will defer to Xavier if he has anything else to add.
Yeah, so historically, we have data that we've collected that we've been using to incorporate into our PAVE-DC plan. What we are currently working on actually is standing up new software to collect like up-to-date data, to actually have real-time data to actually assess the sidewalks conditions and various assets that we maintain. But I'll speak more of that once I present. But that's something that we are actually working to stand up, like new software we're working to stand up.
Okay, that's really great. And is that done by DOT staff? I'm assuming someone plugs it in. Like, who's doing the eyes on the sidewalk piece?
So this will be done by a contractor.
Okay.
Contractor along with myself.
Okay. And one more question for Blake, and that is, as a wheelchair user who does not like brick, I'm wondering if you've heard this from other wheelchair users or others with disabilities, and what's the thought about that? I know that historic rules are a different animal, but for me, the priority is being able to get around comfortably and safely, of course.
Right. I think brick material in general is something that requires more maintenance. I think it's generally a little more pleasing aesthetically, And I think that's why the community, multiple communities in the district, like seeing it. But it does present itself to be a little more of a maintenance challenge. And it's our goal to really reduce the risk and reduce sort of the trip hazards and any hazardous distresses along the material as great as possible. 1 second, I'm gonna close my door here.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I was just curious if there's an effort maybe to eventually phase down brick as much as possible, or if that's just my own personal preference. I don't want to, but I do see it as a hazard to people with especially disabilities.
Right. Good. I mean, yes, I would agree with you. There's no plan to phase it out or phase it down, but it is something that is an area of risk and concern for the district.
Thank you so much. Very, very enlightening.
No problem.
Thanks, buddy. And Kelly, I've got a couple questions. So, as you can imagine, kind of we're particularly focused on, so people with disabilities are twice as likely to not drive a car and are disproportionately thus reliant on sidewalks and buses and transit. And so one thing, kind of it always seems like the district and DDOT in general seem to be prioritizing kind of motor vehicles over, and you can see this in kind of so many different ways, and kind of the signal timings or the raw budgets. And that's actually where I want to start, is kind of what percentage of the paved DC plan budget is focused on roadway versus sidewalks?
In terms of the pie itself and how it's divided up, the majority of the work is dedicated towards resurfacing. However, sidewalk restoration is a substantial part of that. We for this year, just to give you insight, we received additional funding through our debt service, which is an excess money that hasn't been spent. It comes back to the agency for use of infrastructure. And we used a significant amount of that, majority of that, towards our sidewalk plan. It's actually allowed us to add more sites to our work plan. So I think as we get closer and closer to our goal of reducing near elimination of poorly rated roads, our focus is really kind of veering more towards the sidewalk network. But in general, the pavements in the world of our major pavements, we really want to move towards a life cycle approach that is incorporating sort of expectations of deterioration in an urban setting, uses, and also, as I mentioned before, the overall performance, so that it's equitable for all users, and we're not just focused on the experience of motorists or bicyclists. There's pedestrians and other users of our entire network that need to be taken into account. So that's something that we, from the pavement world and operations, so we're really starting to move towards, and we're working closely with our performance management administration on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to push on that a little bit more because it just seems like, so there are a bunch of disparities. So pothole disparity for the service level agreement is 3 days versus sidewalks is 270 days. And, and kind of just looking at, like equity, looking at ward is actually not a great indicator of equity, in the sense that, if you look at income by decile and look at car ownership by income decile, like car ownership is significantly lower at the lower income, and car ownership is significantly lower for people with disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, I just want to, like, kind of even the way that you phrased that, it's like, okay, once we finish the the eliminate poor conditions, we're going to be able to shift more towards sidewalks. Like that's where I want to kind of drill in on, like, okay, this year's budget, like what was this year's budget for paved DC?
For the total amount, I would have to come back to you on the exact
Or
amount.
just a guess.
On average, all 4 work plans together with all 7 contracts is probably close to 90 million, roughly.
Cool.
And sidewalk work is probably somewhere between 20 to 25 of that, roughly. I mean, I'd have to, again, that's back of the napkin math.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that, I understand that the pothole versus the sidewalk sort of service quest SLA is different. Pothole repair is like a very, very basic thing that our teams are able to get out to. And I know the community would love to see, see something similar. And we've tried to adopt a temporary repair patch concept with our street and bridge maintenance branch, sort of doing something similar where we can quickly dispatch them. They perform a temporary patch on the sidewalk, and then we come back, at some later date and perform permanent restoration. The one key difference, even though the area is made safe and it's functional and there's no issue to users of the sidewalk, is that we often get a lot of complaints about the aesthetics, how it looks, why is this in front of my property? And I think while we understand those complaints, we also have a safety obligation. Yeah. And that's why we're trying to deploy additional resources like that, like a horizontal saw cutting program, so that we can, maybe we're not replacing the material, but we're mitigating and really reducing the risk to the greatest degree we can, because it is truly a risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And on sidewalks, I mean, and Kelly's brought a number of these up on sidewalks. They can be, if they're completely impassable. Like there's no, in many cases, right. if it's obstructing kind of a path to, for example, a bus stop, like that can prevent someone from actually getting to work. Right. And that's something that, like, given that almost 40% of people don't own a car, it's something that, you can look at these. This is where kind of coming back to that budget issue of 20 of 90 versus, the 40% of people who don't own a car. If we care about equity, then it should be something closer to that. Similarly, if we look at the sustainable DC plan, which calls for 75% non-car mode share by 2032, again, like this is walk, bus, and transit, not cars. So again, want to push on, if, for example, roads are getting priority that don't, for example, carry buses over sidewalks, like this is our concern. We know there's a fixed pie. And it seems like, even just from these numbers, it seems like, again, sidewalks and kind of people with disabilities, or anyone who doesn't own a car, is being forced to wait in favor of people who, in many cases, the majority of motorists actually in the district don't even live in the district. And that's something of real concern to us.
No, certainly. I appreciate that feedback and those recommendations.
Oh, sorry. This is Zach. I just wanted to interject for a little bit. Just in terms of the funding of sidewalk repair versus roadway repair, Blake's team can't necessarily allocate that pie himself. Sometimes the funding is tied to specific types of work, whether it's a federal project or whether it's a local operating project, wherever we get the funds. So sometimes it's very specific to roadway versus sidewalk, and sometimes the roadway funds include sidewalks. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately somebody is making the decision, and it's just something that, want to point out the disparity, that this is something that really concerns us, and this is something that is kind of DDOT wide. When we brought this up for public space, and closing, for safe accommodations. Oftentimes there aren't safe accommodations for sidewalks, and there's parking that's maintained without but still there's a sidewalk that's being closed. It just kind of, you can see it kind of in every level of DDOT decision making, and this is something that we want to bring up to basically every level of DDOT decision making. This is a really major equity issue that we really need to, if we say we care about sustainability, we care about accessibility, we care about affordability, we care about people with disabilities, then we really have to put our money where our mouth is. This is one of those examples.
Certainly, and I can also say that we've we still have a long way to go, as you point out.
Yep.
Our MAACDC initiative, this was launched in 2018, and we've had a lot of progress and we've made strides, but we still have a number of areas we have to focus in on and make improvements on, and our process in general. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're always seeking feedback, insight from the community, ways to collaborate. So as if there are things that the group as a whole or individuals see that maybe we're overlooking, we're certainly all ears in terms of consideration of those things, and want to be transparent with how we make our decisions.
Yeah, super appreciated. I mean, we're definitely trending in the right direction, which I appreciate. The fact that you guys are proactively collecting data now is great. It's like a kind of really, really important. And yeah, so I'm excited to see it. But I definitely kind of want to make sure that that disparity is still there. It's not gone. It's still
right
there. But we appreciate the work towards getting there.
No, certainly, and again, I primarily try to walk everywhere I go in the district. Try to defer using a vehicle as much as I can. It's a personal level, and I think again, the points you raise are valid, and certainly appreciate it. So anything we do to have further discussions and those considerations take into account, I'm certainly all ears. So thank you.
Great. Any other folks? So non-MAAC folks, kind of open floor. I think Heather, you might have had your hand up. Okay, great. Well, without other questions, so Blake, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, with a kind of a renewed MAAC next year, we'll be able to add some more feedback to your work. So thanks so much for presenting.
Certainly, no problem. Happy to be here.
Yep. All right. I can't get the mic to respond. Dang. Okay. Heather may follow up with you if that's okay. She's one of the chairs of the Pedestrian Advisory Council. There's some comments in the chat. If you, I think they'd appreciate getting connected as well. The Pedestrian Advisory Council.
Yeah, and I'll also, in the meeting minutes they go out, I'll share my contact info so you guys have it. You can get a hold of me directly if there's certain specific questions you think of after the meeting. I'm happy to help answer those.
Super. Great. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Blake. So we will turn over to Xavier.
All right. Thanks again, Blake. Excellent presentation. Again, kudos on that 70 plus miles of sidewalk this fiscal year. Kudos on that. All right. Give me a second here. I, like Blake, this is my first time using Google Meet. So it looks pretty simple here. So I'm going to share my screen. You all let me know when you can see it.
Yep. Good to go.
All right. So, like I said before in the introduction, my name is Xavier Davis. I am DDOT's Americans with Disabilities Act Coordinator. And I wanted to give you kind of like a high-level presentation of, one, the ADA coordinator for DDOT and what I do in the role, and just kind of let you introduce myself formally to the MAAC, although I'm sure Zach has brought my name up a number of times during the meeting, but kind of come and formally introduce myself to the MAAC. All right, so today we're going to talk about the division I'm with, the Equity and Inclusion Division, the ADA, of course, my roles and responsibilities, and slightly talk about the ADA transition plan and what that is. All right, so I am within the DDOT's Equity Inclusion Division. So we have the acting deputy director Sharon Kirschbaum as our acting director. Then we've got our acting chief Lakeisha Love Pettis. She's also on the call this evening. Welcome, Chief. And then within our division, we've got myself, Zachary. We've got a Title VI and Language Access Coordinator, a Program Analyst, and then an EEO Program Manager within our division. All right, so what I do, what I'm all about is the ADA. So of course, my job is formulated around the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, as well as the District of Columbia's Code 2-1.431.02, which is the designation of the Office of Disabilities Rights to coordinate the compliance of the ADA within district agencies. So most of my work is gathering around these regulations. So as the ADA coordinator within DDOT, one, I always like to tell individuals, my job is just, I am a steward of the ADA. Even if there are things that don't apply to DDOT, don't apply to what I do within DDOT, I will serve as a facilitator towards resolution. Specifically within DDOT, I work mainly with Title I and Title II of the ADA. So as you may or may not know, the ADA is divided into parts or titles, and there are 5 different titles. I work with Titles I and II. Title I is more of an in-house regulation where I deal with all ADA-related incidents for the 1,400 plus DDOT employees. So any type of ADA concerns in-house that we have, I deal with. And then Title II, I deal with the external functions of the ADA as it relates to reviewing all transportation plans within our various DDOT systems. So I review those plans in the various stages in which they are being designed. So I review them as early as 30% design phase, 65% design phase, and 100% design phase. And when I'm reviewing those plans, I use various regulations that I'm applying towards those design plans. And so while I review the design plans within that the contractors and at DDOT, all the new construction that DDOT wants to implement, I also review all construction plans that are within the public right of way. So all residential permits that involve the public right of way, I review and approve those, making sure and ensuring ADA compliance. Now, what I've seen is that, while I may review those plans and their specifics as it relates to the ADA, sometimes the contractors may get it wrong. And that's okay, because that's why we're here. Because when they get it wrong, we kind of go out there to help them kind of correct or mitigate those situations where they're actually missed something that's actually on the plan as it relates to the standards or designs. Finally, I also ensure that when there are public engagement functions that DDOT is holding, I ensure that there are specific accommodations for persons with disabilities from requested, whether that be language access responsibilities, language access accommodation, specific translations of documents, or if there's special accommodation, if it's an in-person event, all of those things I also help with facilitating as well. Lastly, I want to talk about the ADA transition plan. So the ADA transition plan is a living, breathing, workable document that is composed that really kind of highlights, it really highlights the district's commitment to making this city a traversable city for all persons. So what we do in this ADA transition plan is we kind of outline what all of the district's assets are, and those assets are the sidewalks, the curb ramps, bus stops, the APS devices. We outline all of those type of assets that the district own, and we talk about their compliance as it relates to the ADA and the work each year that we're doing towards bringing non-compliant assets into compliance, as well as what we've done to maintain compliant assets. And then we also highlight, initiatives that we're taking to further the goals of the ADA. Like I said, this is a living document. We have our ADA, our FY23 ADA transition plan has been approved. Now I know some will say, well, I have not seen that document. We got a verbal approval. I've reached out to Federal Highways to say, can we publish this document? Because you said that it's approved. But we have not gotten that written confirmation of approval from FHWA, which I think should be forthcoming. But this document it's a document in which we really hold true, and it kind of really highlights the district's commitment to the ADA and the efforts that we're making towards making this a truly traversable city for all pedestrians. Lastly, I wanted to kind of just show individuals where you can report issues. You can always use 311. You can call 311. You can go online to use 311. I have a number here posted for the direct number to DDOT's customer service team. So they are 311 members that work specifically for DDOT that deal with the issues related to DDOT. And then there's a link here for if there's if you wanted to file a formal grievance for an issue within the public right of way. And then I have an email address here that I have on the screen just for any issues of ADA concerns, any thoughts of ADA concerns that you would like to send to myself, as well as the ADA team. So that's what that email there is for. And then from there, thank you all, and I will open up for any questions that anyone may have.
Yeah, if I may, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. On Tuesday, I think it was December the 5th, Zachary and Xavier came to Ward 3, Pendleton neighborhood to review the curb cuts to see what maintenance needed to be done to the curb cuts. We had an excellent walk through the neighborhood, and I'm hoping that we will get a report soon in reference to what we found and what can be done to improve the condition of the curb cuts. I live in a senior building with 180 senior residents here, and many of us have poor vision. And those curb cuts are a savior for us because we use them all the time. So we want to make sure that those curb cuts are serving the purpose that they are there for. That is to assist those persons with disabilities to be able to use them to cross the street and do what they need to do rather than having to step off of a curb, which can be a disaster for those with poor vision. So again, thank you, Zach and Xavier, for coming out, and we're looking forward to your report.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure coming out, and we should have something forthcoming for you.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions from the MAAC?
Yes. So yeah, Xavier, thanks so much for the presentation. So I'm looking at the FY, or I guess, so the last time there was a plan that was published, this is the one that Zach sent out, the FY 2022 ADA transition plan.
Yes, sir.
Chart in there that basically says, it's the chart, table 1, FY 2018 data collection, where it says curb ramps, bus stops, APS devices, and sidewalks, where there's non-compliant and compliant. So what is that like? But it doesn't actually define kind of what how something was defined as compliant or non-compliant? Do you know how it was, or like kind of what went into making that table?
Sure. So APS devices, as it relates to placement of like the APS, like the actual push buttons.
Uh-huh.
So that was one. That's what as it relates to the APS devices, non-compliant.
So basically, if it's not there, it's not compliant.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, cool.
As it relates to bus stops, so bus stops that so some of the bus stops there, there are bus shelters that do not allow for wheelchair access.
Got it. Yep.
And so that's when we talk about non-compliant bus stops. Curb ramps, just curb ramps that either they're missing essential functions, maybe the truncated domes that they're missing, or just they're sloped so incorrectly that they're not at standard.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah. And then the sidewalk, that could be either if there's a sidewalk gap, or if there's actually something that impedes the sidewalk. So that could be one of those two things as it relates to non-compliant sidewalk.
Got it. Okay. So the total, so I think within sidewalks, there's total assets, non-compliant and compliant. And I think they actually sum up, so non-compliant plus compliant sum up to the total assets. So for sidewalks, where would gaps fit into that? Does that make sense? I get that's where, so basically APS devices, this is where it's like about little, maybe I can, do you have that document by chance?
Yeah, 1 second, I'm pulling that up now.
I'm just like trying to figure out like kind of what the denominator, like what it actually means.
So when you say what the denominator means, the total.
Yeah. Good question. It's not very clear. Yeah. So do you have table 1 up?
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like so APS devices, it says total assets are 5404. What does that mean? We have 5404 devices?
Correct.
But 5298 are not compliant.
Yes, sir, with current standards.
So what does that, so we have 5404 APS devices, but 5298 are not compliant. So what does a not compliant APS device mean?
So that goes into so when I say non-compliant, as it relates to placement of the push button at the intersections, or if there's devices that don't have any type of indication, any type of sound at the location, all of that goes into non-compliance of an APS device.
The APS device is more than just, so in my mind, an APS device is
just the push. You're thinking just the push button.
The push button with the vibration and the sound.
Correct.
But okay, so yeah. So if an APS device is just a push button with the vibration and the sound, do we have 5404 of those total?
So 5404 that are non-compliant, so they don't meet the current standards of what APS devices should be.
Okay, got it.
Does that make sense? Or
so because it's so it says so 5404 total, then 5298 that are non-compliant, and then 106 that are compliant. So if you add the two, non-compliant, 5298 plus 106, that's 5404. So I'm just trying to figure out so one way to look at this is it's okay, we have 5,000. I think that actually the number of signalized intersections are 7,000, right?
So I don't know the answer to the number of signalized intersections. I would have to.
Or I guess I'm just trying to understand. So 5404, does that mean we actually have 5,404 devices that produce sound and vibration?
No.
Okay.
So we have we have 5,404 devices, but 500 of them don't have all components. So while some may have sound, some may not produce vibration. While some,
I
so
see.
you see what
Got
do you understand? Yeah.
Got it. So 106 are the device. We have 106 devices that produce sound and vibration, and 5,288 that don't.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then for sidewalks, so what does so that number, so non-compliant is 1,585 and compliant is 1,101. And if you add the two, I think, yeah, if you add the two, you get this 2,687.
Yes.
So where do sidewalk gaps fall into that?
So missing sidewalks is included into a non-compliant sidewalk. So that number is already incorporated into that 2,000.
Got it. So, okay, that's where I was getting confused because, so that's included in the total assets, even though it's not an asset.
Correct.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused. That's fine. That's fine. Got it. Okay. And then, so how does the non-compliant versus compliant map onto the sidewalk condition index?
So that Blake spoke of?
Yeah.
So what we do is from the non-compliant, you'll see each year we post a list of proposed locations that are within of non-compliant proposed locations for the next year. Those numbers are incorporated into that
non-compliant
number. And then that's what goes into his paved DC plan. So that's
sorry to interrupt. So the sidewalk condition rating is excellent, good, fair, or poor. So which of those, is it just poor that's non-compliant, or is it poor and fair that's non-compliant, or is it totally disconnected?
It's totally disconnected.
Oh, got it.
So
okay.
So our non-compliance is not from poor or fair. It's whether it's traversable, missing, or something or something that's impeding the sidewalk. So that's what we when we look at non-compliance. Is it a truly traversable surface that meets ADA widths, slopes, and things of that nature?
Got it. So something can be, could you have something that's in poor condition but still ADA compliant?
Yes.
You can. Okay. Because that's where I'm just trying to figure out, because I mean, has there been because I guess I'm a little confused trying to figure out so maybe I don't so I'm on the paved DC website, and the poor says missing material, collapse, unstable material, and pulverized. And I think in general, that's not passable.
Okay, so if that is the case, then that answer would be no. So like I said, they're not related as it relates. So his classifications as it relates to what I'm saying is non-compliant. I don't use poor, fair as a grade. If it's non-traversable, it's not compliant. So there's no in between classifications for compliance.
Got it. And how is traversability measured?
As it relates to anything that impedes the public right of way. So there should be a clear path, clear non-slip surface with ADA required slopes, and nothing that impedes that that location or that surface.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what that actually means, because I think we've all experienced quite a bit of, especially, so maybe I'll defer to Kelly on wheelchair, what for you maybe, what makes something non-traversable?
So we use ADA standards as well as PROAC standards for traversable and non-traversable. And so there could be a number of assets within DC that would be non-traversable, that's the work that we're working to do, correct.
I'm wondering if it's, and correct me, Xavier, because I'm not an expert on the ADA regulation, but this sounds a little bit like a judgment call happens, like, so I would say, hey, I can't get across that, but someone else in a wheelchair might be able to, who's more adventurous than me. So I'm wondering, like, there might be a bit of gray area here as far as traversability. Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, they're slightly gray, but traversable basic so minimum ADA requirements it would be traversable. And so if it meets the minimum requirements of the ADA, we deem it traversable. Now, as you know, PROAG and then our DC Public Realm Guide, as well as our engineering manual, has standards a little bit beyond that basic ADA standards. And so while it may not meet some of our regulation, if it meets basic ADA standards or regulations, we would still deem it traversable.
Got it. And does the transition plan that was just approved or verbal approval, does that show where, because I actually, so I'm still like kind of trying to figure out like what traversability actually, because like kind of like Kelly said, like traversability to one person is not traversable to another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so I would love to actually like get an understanding of like what is traversable. So maybe does that include a map of where the segments are that are non-compliant?
So it doesn't include a map of where segments are that are non-compliant in the transition plan.
Yeah.
We don't include a map of what's non-compliant. What we do include is a graph of proposed locations that we know are non-compliant. It's not mapped out, but it's proposed locations across all 8 wards that we know are non-compliant, that we have kind of used a tool, an equitable tool, to kind of pull various issues to map out how many we can actually correct within the fiscal year. But it's not a map, it's a chart that kind of lists those.
Is there anywhere that actually has all of them, not just what we think we can do next year?
So the paved DC plan would be your best tool for that, because it goes beyond just like this current fiscal year. It goes out to other fiscal years. Now, one thing that we're looking to incorporate in our next transition plan is that we want to have a cumulative list of issues that we know are like non-compliant issues. Maybe they haven't gotten corrected. What we've done before is that the next year we published, and we even if they hadn't got corrected, we published a new list, and we didn't mention that those still hadn't been published. What we're looking to do with our next publication is to actually outline what was from what we published, what was actually corrected and what was not corrected, and to have that list build each year, so that the residents see what work is actually getting done and how long it's taking to do this work.
Got it. Yeah, I think it would be helpful just because I think the PCI is done like kind of block by block, right? Like, and I think it would be helpful to actually have like a global, like, okay, this is what the big issue, like all of the issues are that we see. And this is how much we think we can do this year and then next year, et cetera. But I think it is useful because we have that somewhere, right? Like we have like, in order to generate that graph, like we know where all of the non-compliant sidewalks are, not just the ones that we think we can do next year, right?
Yes. So we have that data, but that's not all of that is not incorporated into the ADA transition plan. That would be like that data would be housed differently in a separate system. But we do have that data. We do have that data because, of course, all of the issues that are reported, of course, are not corrected within the fiscal year. So all that data, we store all of that.
Got it. And any chance that can go up on open data?
I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't be able to commit to that, but I could ask about that.
That would be great. Actually, that would be super helpful. Just so that, like, essentially we can say, because essentially we can say, okay, like here's the scale of the problem, and we've gotten 10% of the way through it, then we got another 10% of the way through it, and then we can kind of get a sense of where we are, rather than just saying like, okay, there's a problem and we're going to solve this number, which we don't actually know what that means. Is that, but yeah, I mean, it would be awesome if you could ask.
Yeah, I could ask about that.
Heather asks a question. Here we go. Do you see the chat, Xavier?
Let's see. 1 second here. So I would be coordinating heavily with Karen and her work to bridge those gaps with sidewalks. I'm actually working to help bring on an additional member of her team to facilitate those works. But I would be working closely with Karen and her team to facilitate those sidewalk gaps. We've gotten additional funding from the to actually do more in the next fiscal year. So we're actually looking to do a lot of great work, budget depending, But I would be working closely with Karen's team. And Heather, does that answer your question? And so as it relates to the sidewalk gaps, so DDOT took on an effort to map out all missing sidewalks within the district. And so while we've mapped out all the missing sidewalks now we're devising a plan as it relates to filling those missing sidewalks. Now that there's pushback on some ends, but we're actually mapping out a plan that we will be filling sidewalk gaps. Whether that means, so it doesn't mean that on each side of the street there's going to be a sidewalk, but there will be a clear continuous path on at least one side of the street. And so those efforts, just for your own knowledge, a lot of those efforts were done before my tenure. And so I'm coming in on the back end once that work was done. So there was a huge team of, I think a lot of them were volunteers from DDOT employees who went out to do that work to actually map out those missing sidewalks.
Cool. Great. That is super helpful. Do you know if that missing data or that missing sidewalk data is on open data?
I don't know if that's on open data or not. I can check though.
Cool. That would be also very helpful. Yeah, we've got some volunteers that are kind of ready to start digging into data once we start kind of putting it all together.
Yeah.
And then so kind of one thing that limits traversability is safe accommodations issues. So like, Kelly's brought this up a lot, and I've seen all of it all across the district. When we talk to Chief Collins,
Correct.
There's not really a good way to report that and have that kind of so I've emailed her a few times about issues with during construction, and no response. So it's like, is there maybe another way to actually get some of this highlighted?
So yeah, safe accommodations is Kelly, I've gotten a couple of those calls, and that's one of the issues. So GDOT contractors receive training as it relates to safe accommodations, but you'll have those renegade contractors who will, hey, I'm going to get it done really quickly, so I'm just going to close everything. And so what I'm finding is that I've been looking to see, is there a trend among contractors, which there's not. It's not the same contractor doing it. Then sometimes it's not even DDOT contractors. It's sometimes like a Pepco contractor, or a WMATA contract. So there are a lot of different contractors. So right now, what I say is the best thing is that if you see something, say something. Now the easiest way now would be to call 311. So now I do know that the system, if you go online to 311, it is not you can't find what you're looking for as it relates to a sidewalk not being open, correct? Our performance team is working along with the Office of Unified Communication to actually get a safe accommodations ticket in there. Now that request has been made, like GDOT has been vocal about our request and our need for that ticket type. And what we've been told is that that is coming. Now, until then, 311, calling 311 would probably be the easiest. Now, if you call 311, or if there's a safe accommodation, or if you email Chief Collins, so what I do is, if I email Chief Collins, or you can email myself as it relates to safe accommodations. And what I usually do is I see something. I'm walking for lunch. If I see 4 curb ramps closed, I introduce myself, let them know that I'm about to give public space a call, and they're going to come out here and give them a ticket for this. And I usually email Chief Collins along with the chief of my division, just letting them know what I'm finding. And public space usually responds very quickly. So I found them to be very responsive to issues related to safe accommodations. Our public, So
there a number there that I should call? Because I think what I'm struggling with is, so I'll see something, I'm working, then I get to it a few hours. Anyway, by the time it gets through the C311, it's days later and they're gone. Like, I don't know who was even there. So I think I need like an immediate number, or there needs to be some sort of like.
So if you use the DDOT's customer service team number during business hours. And that's the 202, that's the number Zachary put into the chat.
Okay.
So that number, that ticket type automatically, that ticket type doesn't go to a next the business day. That automatically goes out to the inspectors, those tickets.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, cool. I need the bat signal.
And then I like I said, my job is to advocate. So if ever you find like, I called, it's been 4 hours and they're still blocked, you have my personal my contact information. I'll share it in the chat as well, so other members of the MAAC have it.
Cool.
But also that D.ADA email address, you can use that email address to email about any type of ADA concern that you may have, and it's coming straight to me. And so there's not like, I only deal with this type of ADA concern. I only deal with this. Any ADA related concern you may have, use that email address in the chat, and it comes straight to me. I'm on it.
Nice. Okay, cool. This is super helpful. Okay, because actually I don't think I copied you on the email. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that for next time. Cool. This is great. Well, yeah, Xavier, thank you so much for presenting. This is super helpful. So now I'll just open it up for kind of big picture comments, questions, concerns, anything that we haven't addressed relating to subjects tonight, or just anything that's on anyone's mind.
Well, hi, this is Lakeisha. I just wanted to first commend our DDOT team, both Zachary and Xavier and Blake, for presenting and giving very helpful information. And it's been very, very informative. And I really wanted to thank them. And to also say, in the event that all else fails, you all can send the email to myself, which I'm copied on the ADA email. And if something needs to be escalated, I will actually help and participate in getting whatever help I can with Chief Collins as well. So great job tonight, everyone. Thank you.
Yep, great.
Great. Anyone else?
And Karthik and Kelly and Buddy. So I'm not sure if you all are aware. So Lakeisha Love Pettis, that's our new chief of the Equity Inclusion Division. So Nana Bailey Thomas is not here anymore. So Lakeisha
replacing. Got it. Okay.
That's our new chief. That was who was just speaking.
Okay.
Oh, my apologies to you all.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you. Yeah,
great.
Craig, congratulations on the new role.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well then, I think Anything else? Anything else that we should talk about before we break?
Oh, this is Zach. I just wanted to again say thank you to Buddy for his service on the MAAC.
Yes.
So it's been a pleasure, Buddy, and I hope I hope we can stay in touch. And
I will.
it's not
Absolutely.
related issues, but
Yes.
thank you so
Please come back.
We're gonna miss you. We so appreciate
miss
your
you.
voice.
Okay.
Yeah, we really
Thank
appreciate
you.
Yeah,
I'll
we
be-
really appreciate it.
I'll be back periodically to see what's going on. Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And echoing Zach, thanks so much for your service, and definitely hope to keep you in the loop.
Yep.
All right. Well, take care, everyone. This will conclude our December meeting. We will reconvene in January. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah,
Happy holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays.
Yep.
Take
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.